Hello, and welcome. My Heart's Purpose. We are back, coming home to Aliveness. My Heart's Purpose is a 9 method virtual journey designed to help you discover your why and create or refine your life purpose statement. A lot of people live their life on purpose, and we're here today to introduce you to one of those and hear about their journey. Today, my guest is Bella Krystal. After the interview, we'll transition into exploring into one of the 9 methods of My Heart's Purpose with Bella, which is all about human design, which she knows a lot about. So let me tell you a little bit about Bella. Bella Krystal is a visionary teacher, entrepreneur, and a synthesizer of ancient wisdom, weaving human design, gene keys, and astrology into a living framework for embodied sovereignty. Today, she's the founder of Decoding Your Design, and through her work, she's touched thousands of students worldwide. But beneath the accolades lies a quieter journey. Moving from the pursuit of being the ideal, the mature one, the highest possible outcome, into the radical permission of simply being alive. Her path returns again and again to the body as the meeting place of spirit and soul, and to aliveness as the truest compass home. So, what I found interesting is that Bella moved from chasing the perfect life into the perfect life, these ideal decisions, or being the mature one who sees everything, to learning that her body holds the compass. She discovered that purpose isn't found through difficult decisions, but through small, moment by moment responses to what feels alive. So, with no further ado, welcome, Bella.
Thank you. It's so cool when you're introduced in a way that you resonate with, because sometimes you can hear the bio read and you don't feel that that's you. But I actually really recognize myself in what you said. So thank you.
Oh, that's amazing. That's great. Well, I've got some really fun questions for you. Mm, Hello.
Hello?
Oh, there you are. You lost you for a moment,
Okay.
but I think we're back.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what does living on purpose mean to you, and how do you find it for yourself?
For me, it's all about wholeness. So the purpose is when we're not having different parts of ourselves that are pulling us in different directions. And the simplest way would probably be to say the body, the emotions, the mind, the spiritual and soul-based part of us, that they are working together and that they are feeling that they're moving together. And when they aren't, that's when we feel a lot of interference, and that can be inner turmoil, outer turmoil. That's that kind of reflection that happens. So to listen to all the different parts and allow them to sit around the table, that's how we can start to move in a way that's more coherent.
Mm, yeah. So something you speak a lot to is aliveness, and so I'm curious. You ask yourself every day, did I feel alive today? Was the day worth it? When did you first realize, like, aliveness and not idealism was your true north?
I think that with those systems, the esoteric systems, whether there's yoga or tantra or Taoism or human design, everything that I've done has so many terms and you can learn so much. And sometimes you can be caught up in that. And especially when you're trying to explain to somebody in your normal life what it is about, then all these words may make a distance with the other person. I think aliveness, hopefully, is something that anybody can resonate with. And if we don't, we should really start to wonder what is it that isn't allowing me? Is it the why am I numb? What's the state of my nervous system? So aliveness, it's not even at the end of the day. I think it's moment by moment. Even now we're sitting here and making sense, speaking with each other for like half an hour. Am I how am I sitting? How am I feeling? Am I where in my body, or am I just in my mind trying to see how can I respond in the best way? Am I in my heart? Do I have fun? Is it alive? Right? So
Yeah.
I feel like that's when alive, that means that again it's kind of a dance of everything. Otherwise it's rigid or it's contracted, but alive just kind of, it feels to me very much in the dance and the movement of life.
Mm. Yeah, it's beautiful. When we can feel it, we can feel it in each other, and that aliveness in each of us is really just multiplying the potential of aliveness that we get to experience together and within ourselves.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, I caught a thread in your story of moving away from the mature one, the one with the big perspective, the idealized version of yourself. I'm curious, what did you have to release to come home to your own humanness?
I think this goes to, I always speak about integration. So it's not that it's not that, it's that and more. I do appreciate people that have common sense. I do appreciate people that can zoom out and see the big perspective. I am very transpersonal and interpersonal in the way that I am in the world. And that is connected also to what we can see in my astrology or my human design. And at the same time, anything that we over focus on becomes something that we kind of run away from the totality. So it's been more of seeing when that perspective is exaggerated, so
Mm-hmm.
that you are so much focusing on the big picture and the other and why maybe somebody doesn't show up in a situation, so that you forget how you feel. You forget that inner child. You forget your own joy, your aliveness. You forget about all of the compromises that you're making to try to make everything be okay, maybe in the long run, the big perspective. And sometimes that lifestyle is more based on hope, idealism, patience. But that kind of patience also can be what blocks you from not being completely alive. So for me, a word that I really love is humanness. I feel like sometimes we use those words, especially in the gene keys and in spiritual situations, that are so high, like compassion and forgiveness and even more spiritual words. And for me, it's so much the whole thing, the humanness. It's not very human for me to completely not see my own perspective, to just look at what would be the perfect situation and how can I go to the last drop of blood and exhaust myself to make this better. But for what? So,
Mm-hmm.
so it's very important for me to come back to that humanness, which is hearing my own heart for me and for everybody else. And that the whole thing with aliveness too, for me, that comes back to empowerment. How can I inspire anything in the world if I am not empowered within first? And that includes, like we say, those different parts of me. So if I've completely closed off my emotions to try to make something on the outside. And so that was one thing. And the other thing I think was also that when you are an only child and you're born, you grow up in the 90s and you have your parents that made that shift from having parents that didn't even go to college, and then both of my parents went to college, and you grow up and you hear you can do anything, you can do anything, and you speak already several languages, and you have life in Sweden, life in Spain. So I grew up knowing that I could basically do anything. You're intelligent, and that sometimes doesn't make it easier.
Yeah.
That makes you try harder to be like, what is it? If I can do everything, what should I choose? So
Yeah.
you start to think about the best schools. You start, everything becomes that almost rushing towards something more and something higher, also because you want to kind of prove to yourself. And that is something, coming back to human design, that in my design, I should, not that I should do anything, but it would be good for me to wake up every morning and remind myself that I have nothing to prove. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, that's 70% of the population that have that similarity. So human beings, we can run in hamster wheels forever, and competing with what? And in my case, I feel like it's been competing with myself has been where I can never win somehow. And also growing up with adults, then you are expected to be an adult very early. And especially if you're verbally early, then you're 3 years old and they think that your intellect, that you understand everything in the world. And that's where I have to remind myself, how can I be more human with those younger parts of me that had to maybe grow up too fast? So humanness, whenever we go away and we become rigid, we brace, we become kind of courageous for some kind of mind reason, not just because that's the passion and the things that moves us forward, then I think it's important to kind of take a step back and not push for something again that comes from here and not from everything that we are.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. One thing you said, which is just exploring this concept of humanness and the unique upbringing that you were expressing having, where you felt like you could do anything. I mean, that is exactly what's happening right now to everybody. You know, like with the emergence of all this technology and this intelligence that we have on tap and these tools that we have and everything else, I think some of the experience that you've had to give yourself that belief of thinking and believing that you could do anything, I think, and how that is one of the biggest challenges, also. So I'm curious for those, for the younger people that might be listening to this, and for because it's so obvious that right now with all of these tools and technology at our fingertips, what are the things that people could do to bring more humanness, into their life from what you've learned?
Yeah, I think this brings us back to what I always speak about, which is the body. Because whatever is physical and tangible and connected to our senses, that is also connected to our aliveness, and that's connected to the present moment. And that's often what happens. We have our screens. I have like four screens just in front of me right now. The life is so much in that kind of virtual space. So coming back to the tangible, coming back to contact human to human, coming back to contact with our pets, walking on the grass. I live right by the ocean. So have myself go to the ocean, even if I don't have a lot of spaces between one thing and another in my day. I feel like that takes us down to earth again. And from that space of being grounded, that's when we actually can start to feel what is my genius. Because again, when we are just here with all of the input that we have all the time, then it's very easy to be distracted and confused about yourself and your own way. And I think all of us have felt that, and especially I think young people, and they are still developing their brains and all that. It's when we have spent time scrolling a screen, then it's almost like this thing of coming back, and we might not even remember what time of the day it is, or we haven't eaten for 2 hours because we were scrolling. So I think that the distraction is huge in that
Mm-hmm.
sense, and that's why I'm a Taurus as well in astrology. So for me, coming back to the body, but that was also something, again, going back to the perfection, the spirituality. I always put spirit on a pedestal because I felt like it was more reliable than the body. So it's often we have to go to completely the dysfunction to start to understand the function. And it took me very, very long time. My mom has multiple sclerosis. She had a lot of health issues when I was a child, and I spent a lot of time with my mom, had a very close relationship to her. So I always felt like the body wasn't a safe place, and it can have new symptoms at any moment. And that was my journey for many years. So I say come back to the body, the senses, but there was a lot of time where I think I didn't dare to do that. And then you become an A student, and then you're pretending that you're so stressed, like it was super important to have A plus in high school, which it wasn't, because you're going to go to the right school, which maybe is the worst thing because you're going to spend 5 more years studying day and night. We never know. And I think that that's the whole thing with purpose. Like we can have a vision, and it's amazing when we can speak to young people about their vision, and that's going to change. They're going to want to
Right.
be a veterinary one day, and then they're going to want to be an actor. But to speak to children, to young people about their vision, I think that that's really important. And then at the same time, it's the overlay about the here and now that is so important. And sometimes that's scary, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that even when it comes to daily interactions, nowadays when it knocks on the door, we're like, oh, what's wrong? Who can that be? Who's on the door? Right? And even like in the sexual sense, like young people, how do they learn intimacy? Is it on a screen with pornography, or is it truly intimacy with another person? These things are, I believe, super important. And the first thing to do pragmatically is to lay the cards on the table. What's going on? And if it doesn't work, that's the pragmatic thing. How well does it work? If it doesn't work, what is there to pull? What is it that we can change? What is it that needs to be understood? What is it that needs to come back into contact?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And so that brings me to something else that you were talking about a little bit, is this the trip that you took from the shift that happened within you when you went from discipline to devotion, essentially. And
Mhm.
that's kind of what you're talking about, but I'd love for you to share a little bit more, because that is, I mean, it's such a key to what it is that you're talking about, I think.
Yeah, humans don't change easily. It doesn't matter, again, our astrology, our human design. we just don't change easily. And that's the same thing Einstein. You throw something in a certain direction and it has a movement. Like something needs to happen for it to stop or changing direction or change direction. So it was from pain. Like, and that, but it's very simple in one way. How does life work for you? When life doesn't work for us anymore, when life is painful, when the body is painful, when the emotions are painful, when the mind is painful, when the battle with God is painful, then we realize that what we're doing doesn't work. And for me, that was not easy to understand by the age of before 30, more or less, that the 10 last years to go to the best schools, to do the MBA in the United States, to have lived already in 6 countries, speaking 6 languages, everything that I had done, get engaged with a diplomat, everything that I had done seemed like that was, again, the choice, the best of the best. It was adventure, it was interesting, it was dynamic. And I found myself at an Airbnb in Stockholm on the fancy streets, sitting in a corner almost, sitting on the kitchen floor, looking around like, what? How could I end up here in the same place, basically in the same country where I was born? But it feels so cold inside and so cold around me, and I feel my nervous system like I'm paralyzed, like I would have a knife against my throat. That's how bad it had to go. So that stubbornness, and I feel like those kinds of conversations that we're having today, or that we can have with our children, with our friends, in our workplaces, it doesn't necessarily have to get that bad for us to shift. But maybe when it does, our breakthrough also becomes a bit more powerful. And also, we are more aware when we're slipping into those patterns again that take us back to numbness, to stress, to proving ourselves. We are more aware of where we were and where we don't want to come back. And that's also when we start to kind of create a completely new architecture that becomes more of a support structure. And that's what I feel communities like what you are creating, relationships to people over time, we see each other evolve. We can be a soundboard for the other person. We can be a reflection. It's not that to give our authority away and have outer authority telling us what to do, but sometimes that mirror with another person can be so powerful. And I kind of had to see myself in the mirror and see, is this what it led to? And then make different choices.
Yeah.
And that was not from one day to another that everything got better. But I think that was definitely a turning point of saying, this doesn't work. And
Yeah.
then the question is like, God, universe, intelligence, my heart, my
Yeah.
body,
Yeah.
like, where's the orgasmic energy? Like, I feel numb, dead, like a paralyzed, scared animal in a corner.
Mm.
This can't be what this experience is about.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. It's huge how it sucks that we have, in a way, it sucks that we have to go through such a deep pain, but on the other side of it, we realize that, I mean, the embodiment of discipline to devotion has been, I've known you long enough to know that, like, God, that's a huge part of who you are today, you know? And so a lot of people, I think, it's scary. It's scary to go through challenge. To go through these different things. And so you went through it then, and you came out in a really good in a really good way. Unfolded your life in magical with magical capabilities. I would say. And then I want to just uh, talk a little bit about this last year has been just like a huge recalibration for you as well. Starting again from zero after losing 7 years of work, beyond the details of like what happened. But I'm curious now, like stepping away from that a little bit, from like this time around, what did stripping away reveal about the purpose beneath your own purpose?
Yeah, I feel going back a little bit to what we just said, which is a very important distinction for all of us. We can have been in yoga, we can have been in tantra, we can have been traveling the world doing retreats, we can have done all these things forever and ever. Some of us, we lived in California, like we've been in India, we've been in Brazil, and a lot of that happened before I broke down. So I was born to a mom that was already doing raw food with before that word existed and growing wheatgrass in the laundry room. So much of it I did have not only just a theory, but the knowing, and I had done it. But there was something deeper on a soul level that didn't allow me to relax and surrender. And I think that that's always for me is going to be that kind of challenge that stays. So to know that there are some things that the soul came here to work through in this lifetime, and we always have to be aware that that's a little bit of the density that's in us.
Yeah.
So I think that with all this is that it's not about knowing it. It's not even about booking the trip and going there. It's really on a cellular level when we wake up when we it's like every like it's moment by moment like I'm saying. So it's not enough to know it. It's like you say, it's that devotion to something that is more alive, to something that is more aligned, to something that feels more true.
Yeah.
And that's really what I live for. And I think for me, when I have to start from zero, that's the question. What is it that I want to convey? What is it that naturally I am conveying?
Yeah.
And to see those two parts, what comes naturally and what is not potential as something I'm trying to be, but what is it that wants to emerge if everything else is stripped away? What do I care about for the world? And for me, it's always going to be also that that combination, like I said, how to be empowered as an individual, but also how to have a perspective on a pattern that works better for humanity.
Yeah.
And to in that have the courage. And I think that that's the thing too, when we work with other people. It's like if one person is really raw and sometimes provocative and very dynamic and have a very clear way of how these things work, then if you work with somebody that's not maybe aligned in the same ways, that creates a bit of instability, I guess, in that sense.
Yeah.
So to be able to kind of speak and live and inspire and play with people that are here and now ready to say, okay, I'll come in this whirlwind of energy, of aliveness, of circulation with you.
Yeah.
That is important. And I think that again, that goes back to what I said in the beginning. I always wanted to make partnership work no matter what. And I think that that was with my mom. It's like love has a lot to do with how we can be together in difficulty. And I had that as a value again to the last drop of blood. If my life is in danger, then I'm going to move away from France and my business partner and my partner there because it could like kill me. But sometimes or often to have that boundary before it gets really bad. And I think that that's something that I'm learned too. So see who wants to play with me and who wants to play with me where it's a win-win. Because I don't want anybody to sacrifice themselves for me and I'm kind of done compromising and investing in compromise because the compound of compromise
Yeah.
it's a draining compound instead of the synergy that happens when we build with people that are ready to build with us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a journey. Life is such a journey, in all of it. I went through a about 15 years ago. I had, worked on something for 6 years, and through a very different random set of events, I just had to lay it all down and start over from zero. And so I can relate, I can relate in my own way to what that what that takes, what and how just like emotionally like what a wreckage, it is in so many different ways. And now, 15 years after, that I can just, it's one of the biggest blessings. It's one of the biggest blessings that, ever happened, in my life. And, but God, it didn't feel like that in the moment, it was wild. So you're,
Yeah, and
you
like mhm, sorry.
no, I was just gonna say you're a powerhouse, and I'm so sorry for the pain, of all that. And at the same time, somehow, some way, I do have a trust, that even those hard moments, is gonna shape us in a way that's gonna make us just more amazing humans.
Yeah, and is the battle of what happened, or is the battle old battle? Again, I was saying this kind of spiritual battle with God. So it might, in my case, maybe what I'm learning through this is that I could go in to the belief of saying if humanity is like that, if humans are like this, God, like why is it worth it if I cannot even in my own close relationships create something that is of a higher vibration, that is more heart centered? If I fail, like what does that say about humanity? What does that say about what I can create? So it does matter the story we tell about it. And often when the months are passing, we have kind of that choice of what is the story that we're going to tell, or what is the old battle, because everything in life are patterns. So what is the old pattern that I could more compound again and accumulate this kind of shadow way of looking, of being? Because at the end of the day, it's kind of victimization or empowerment, and we
Sure.
do have a choice in our attitude. So I feel that there's something with this that is like, I have a deep longing for humanity and for really being able to build with other people something that is a model, very similar for you, what you're building a space that is a role model. You're going out now to Portugal and other countries to show and how this could be built. And I had a dream, and when I started to work with like your design 7 years ago, 8 years ago, this was a dream that I had. But then it could seem that that's a card house that fell. And with that longing, there could come a sadness, and there could come also like resignation. And I think that that's the whole thing. And we need to, instead of battling with God, the question is, like you say, okay, so what? If I surrender to this, what wants to emerge?
Hmm.
What is it that wants to be here in the next iteration? And then I think on a human plane, that's like on a very human kind of 3D plane, that's where still I'm not super strong in that sense. I'm pragmatic in the everyday, but in the legal system, and that's been huge for me the last 2 years. A really kind of serious stalking case with four cities and two counties, and state attorneys calling me almost every day, and going through all this without representation. I had for the business part, I had a attorney for 10 weeks, and then I haven't had representation. So learning also so much about the system and the structures. And I think that that is so interesting, going back to human design and knowing that 2027 is a really big shift. We can see on the world stage a really big shift, all of the other planets going into new signs. So in this, the decomposition, or like the structures are falling, and it's a very interesting time to live, and there's so much to learn. And like you say, I think that some of the things we learn in the moment, we don't know why.
Yeah.
But instead of battling with the why,
Yeah.
the important thing is to be like, okay, it's like, again, that kind of integration of whatever this experience. And it is quite interesting to just see. I don't believe in exposure therapy, but once you've been in a courtroom with the same judge for like the fifth time, there is definitely something that changes. The first time you're trembling and you
Mm.
feel like you don't know if you're going to be able to speak. The
Hmm.
fifth time is like saying to the judge, like, why have we been doing this if this was the outcome now? It's like you can see that the more that you're able to do something, mastery comes from there. And also kind of the courage or the leadership. So I
Yeah.
think sometimes that's an exposure therapy that we don't do deliberately. But
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
there's a higher intelligence that puts us there for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Wow. Thank you. So you've mentioned something a few times, and one of the main reasons we're here to chat today is about human design. And so my heart's purpose is a 9 method virtual journey designed to help people discover their why, which we kind of see as their anchor, and then also to create or refine their life purpose statement, which is essentially the fuel or the inner guidance and motivation to help people choose the expression of doing that is truly aligned with their true north. And so method 7 of my heart's purpose is human design. And so human design, as you know, and maybe some people don't know, what it is, but it's a practical blueprint for how your energy is designed to move through the world, how to help you make decisions and to support you and how to interact with others. And you're the pro at this. So I'm curious what you would like to add to that, or can you kind of give a short intro to like what human design is?
Yeah, it is a blueprint, an energy blueprint that shows. how your energy is interacting with the world, receiving and transmitting. And often, like we said, we are very focused on allowing our mind to dictate how we move through the world. But through human design, you can see what is consistent in you and how you're here to impact, touch the world, what you are transmitting out in the world, and how you're here again to have impact, to relate. And you also see where you're receiving. And in those places where you're receiving, it's very easy to become a sponge, and life becomes about that, dealing with these things that can be emotions, that can be thoughts, that can be the pressure again, like we said, to prove yourself, and different things as well. So to know what is it that I'm here, how am I here to touch the world, and that's not rigid, it's more like a blueprint, that's natural, for we are going to be able to feel that that's natural. And then the other things that often when we start to speak to people about where they're receiving, we can see that there's so much energy and so much drain in relationships, in life, in the big questions that we can never figure out with the mind. So being able to see that for ourselves, and then we can put those body graphs or those blueprints with other people and see what is the dynamic between me and another person. And that can also make us understand, one, our uniqueness, how different we are, but also how we are complementary, and also why the relationship can be so different with one person and another person, because it shows. So I really, really love human design because it's like a matrix, and it's very clear visually as well what's there.
Yeah.
And then it's almost like we can start to remember when things are feeling strange in life. It's like, oh yeah, I can even remember viscerally what it is that's happening. So I love the simplicity of that. And then my way of working with it is starting always from the basics, starting from the one thing that we kind of need to know first, because otherwise it's like everything else, it's so much information, so much theory, and we get lost, and then we just have interesting facts, but it doesn't change our life.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. One of the goals of human design is to help people live their unique design. And so I'm curious, what does living your own design mean for you?
I believe that a lot of what I was conditioned to think about who you're supposed to be in the world, having heard again, you can do anything, I could really see a lot of leadership in the world. Like I can see leadership. It's something that it's like my glasses is leadership and role modeling. And I can see the binary, leadership or not, role modeling or not. And a lot of the people on the kind of stages of the world had like, I could see that they had an impact and a power that seemed like they didn't hesitate. And it was like a different kind of power than what I'm saying, kind of the overview and the perspective. And I was wondering why I wasn't able to do that. And often for me, it's always been a relationship. Why am I not able to cut? Why am I not able to have boundaries? What does all this permissiveness come from? Why am I preferring to make sure that everything is okay? And I was making myself wrong, thinking that I was weak.
Mm.
And when I started to learn about my design, I could see that the way that I move through the world, the way that maybe I teach, the way that I communicate, the way that I find solutions, it's not that traditional leadership of kind of do what I say
Yeah.
and then everybody would be happy. It's more collaborative, it's more feminine, it's more inspiring than just verbal. It's very important for me to walk my talk. So it allowed me to be me, and understanding why I wasn't what I saw, and also that there's no point of trying to be what we aren't. And that's where it's impossible, I believe, after 15 years of human design, to understand what's there in your blueprint that you can have any person that works with this speak to about, and not recognize yourself.
Mm.
And it often feels, going back to the body, because again, the mind can say, oh, that's right, but it's really about this relief. Like you can feel like a sigh out, like your whole body, your whole nervous system is like, suddenly you feel like, okay, like a little bit in the beginning you were saying a little bit about me, and I'm like, okay, that felt that you were explaining kind of a bit of a portrait of what I care about. And with human design is even different. It's like you feel like you can finally breathe out, because you don't have to try to be or struggle with what you aren't. And you
Mm-hmm.
have that you can allow yourself to come back in. And to me, coming back in, and this is where it becomes like a bit woo woo, probably for people, but for me, coming back in, we are heart purpose, heart space, right? Is coming back to the heart. But it's not only the heart; it's even deeper down. Like it's where the base of life, the Kundalini, the root center, the sacral center, the healthy regeneration of our life force. Human design, 70% of the population are generators or manifesting generators, defined sacral center, having that healthy circulation from with life force, our own way of living out intimacy. And then we could say that's connected to the animal body. So animal body, human heart. And then we're amazing. We're speaking about the vision that young people have. And that vision is so important that we can allow some of those ideas the young people have to seed, because that's going to be the future. So that whole thing with animal body, human heart, creator mind, connection to spirit and God,
Yeah.
and that is the circulation of Kundalini, that is the wholeness, that is the aliveness. And that's where I believe life force is very central in human design, but sometimes in some circles I feel like it's not well understood. But it really goes back to, how are you circulating life force? And you said in the beginning, how, when you go to bed at night, do you feel like that day was worth it? And in human design, we have very distinctive signatures for how different aura types, we say, go to bed and feel. So it's about feeling success, feeling that we have satisfaction, feeling kind of surprised in a good way, feeling that we have an influence. Like different people are going to feel different things, to know that they have used and circulated the energy in a way that is creating, building their life. And then there are also indicators like frustration and anger, bitterness, disappointment are the main four ones. That if you go to bed and you feel that, or you work
Hmm.
with some people for a period of time, and that's what it goes into, then it's time to ask yourself, if that is the right way of living, or the right place of interacting, the right situation for you.
Yeah. That's amazing. It's there's so much in that, so many directions we could go, because it's such a beautiful exploration, for people to really understand what this blueprint says with regard to how they can be living their design, and then so many of those challenges just don't really exist, in the way that it might, if you don't understand what living your design is actually like.
And I would simplify it even more.
Yeah.
I would say it goes back to self-love. And for self-love, you need to feel good in your genitals. You need to feel good in your belly. You need to feel good in your heart. You need to feel good in your throat. You need to feel good in the way you see the world. You need to feel good in the relationship with something higher. And when you have that self-love, which is reinforced by knowing your design, in the sense that when you see your uniqueness, you actually start to see that child, that little boy or that little girl, and you see that they were so perfect in how they wanted to go about the world, and then they were told no, no, they were living, I get to, and they were very unique, how they wanted to play, how they wanted to sleep, how they wanted to eat. We are all very unique. And you start to remember that person, because you can see in your blueprint that that's perfectly, you are doing perfectly who you are. And then it's all the conditioning, the education, the culture that doesn't allow you to do that anymore. So really what happens is that you start to allow that pure version of you that hasn't been conditioned to come through. And with that, there is self-love. And when you have love for those more tender parts and playful parts of yourself, that's really what you start to also see in others. And you see that their blueprint is different. So it's really about self-love and being able to love the other for who they are. And I
Mm.
think so many relationships aren't working because either we're trying to change the other, and if they really loved us they would change, or we again resigned and we're like, it's never going to change, but we're going to be together for the kids or for the money or for whatever it is. So
Mhm.
to actually start to see somebody for who they really are, isn't that the greatest act of love, to be able to do that, but also to have take the responsibility to say, actually, the way that you are here to live as a unique soul and being, and the way that I'm here to live, it's just too parallel. It's not going to be, you're not going to be able to meet in the middle. So I honor you. And that's like, we speak about conscious uncoupling and all these things, but it's kind of, in some way, it's simpler like that, simpler than that. I love you, and this cannot work. We're not compatible. So I set you free. So that's what I often speak about. The experience of being sovereign in how we live our life, the experience of being free. We're not in a cage having to be something for somebody, and whole.
Yeah.
Because there is one day where you really have that feeling of that inner child, and you spend the whole day with the inner child. But then you go to a conference and you have other minds that are like genius like you, and you come up with all these visions about the future. So it's really the wholeness of being everything that you are. And there are some times where you're way more connected to your sensuality and to that part of yourself, the animalistic. And then there's sometimes you can just sit in a ceremony and you just cry of the beauty of Mother Earth,
Mm,
right? So all of the wholeness. So sovereign, free, and whole. Like
mm,
I feel that that's the way that, with knowing who we are and allowing each person to be who they truly are, and also to mirror each other when we go, like I say, off track, to be able to have a reflection. That's really how we can build something that lasts.
yeah. Wow. You are fire, girl. I love it. Thank you so much. So how do you see human design becoming a doorway for people to, find their purpose?
Again, going back to, if you are alive, if you love yourself, if you feel sovereign and free and whole, there's no way that you're not living your purpose,
Hmm.
because you're living it in every moment. There is no other purpose.
Yeah.
So the compound of moment by moment by moment of self acceptance, self love, surrender to whoever anybody else is, that creates purpose.
Yeah.
And you can still have a vision and
Yeah.
an intention, but at the same time, it's only the moment by moment by moment that compounds into the manifest. So we
Yeah.
don't really even need that. Like trusting God, the higher self, however you want to see it, so much that, if I'm aligned in the now, the future doesn't exist, the past doesn't exist. It's more about anchoring purpose in the now than going towards some kind of purpose. And that's the whole thing. Anchoring purpose is when everything is aligned and everything can connect both into the embodiment of Mother Earth and the awareness of Father Sky. That's,
Yeah.
I don't see anything else in that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, when people go through My Heart's Purpose, they'll come to realize that when they get to method 7, it is one of the chunkiest. It's the chunkiest method, of the whole entire thing. It goes deep into something like some people might not know this jargon to some people, but it goes through type, strategy, authority, profile, incarnation cross, and then AI assisted, focus support through all of these things. And it's a lot of new information for somebody to take in that's never, checked this stuff out before. So I'm curious, from your perspective, for people who are just discovering their design and they go through this whole entire process and now they have all of this information, with for them, like, what kind of how would you, how would you yeah, what would you tell them to, like, ease their potential overwhelm, and all of that information?
I am not so much for labels. So even the whole thing with aura type and inner authority, when you understand the centers, so there are 9 centers in the body graph. They're similar to our chakras, but they all have different themes. So when you learn about the 9 centers and you know what centers in the body graph are colored in for you, that is where you're home. So that's the basics. You always want to go home to these centers. And wherever is white in the body graph, that's where you have a lot of input and you filter a lot. And you're not here to become a sponge. You're here to become wise about everything that you're filtering in the openness. So that's even more important than strident authority. If you learn about the centers, you have defined ego center. You know that you have all of the energy to compete. And not everybody's like that again. So it's, to me, it's knowing the centers where you're defined. That's where you come home. And always, whenever something feels overwhelming in life, when things are in interference, you come back to your definition. And some people have a lot of definition and some people have less definition. And from there, I feel that we do want to know what we call profile. So there are 12 different profiles and there are different numbers. And it's also connected back to the body. So you're going to have two numbers between 1 and 6, and they're connected to the chakras. So you, if I remember right, you are a 3-5. So your character in the world is that you are connected to your solar plexus, to your desire, to the joy of building, of dynamism, of going to Portugal and having people from Angola and building the next center and the next community. That's the fire. And at the same time, you have a presence to you, an energy that makes this possible. You have a master in how you walk through the world. The vibration of not only vocal cords, but three, solar plexus 5. You have a voice or a vibration that is, when it comes out into the world, it has an impact. And that's not necessarily even verbal. Like I said, it's when you are really anchored in yourself, that impact, that leadership is a leadership that's embodied more than a leadership that's spoken. So that's you in the world. I am a 4-6, so I'm connected to the heart. And again, I have a hard time cutting with people. I always want to choose connection rather than coldness. And then I have the third eye, the sixth chakra. So I'm always going to see the overview. And sometimes I'm going to look more of the consequences when I fall on others than my own, than how I feel. And it's my perspective is extremely transpersonal. And so those are the characteristics, and of course they have negative things too. You can kind of burn things up and stumble with the solar plexus, and you can sometimes make other people feel like you are more than them because of that leadership that you have. And I could close my heart and never trust again, and I could also kind of be a judge saying I see it better than you do. So it's both, it's always a binary, good and bad. But I think the profile is very important, and always connecting the profile to the body, because that's the embodiment of it. And often the more we become embodied, the more we actually are able to anchor more of our true self. The second line is going to be more important, because that is really how we anchor the soul. So it's almost like the personality, what people first see is the 3 for you, and really when you anchor the soul, that leadership, vibrational leadership of your presence is going to be even more powerful. So I think that's kind of the first thing to even go into, because that's funny. You can see, okay, what profile is that person? And
Sure.
just knowing 6 lines and combining them, that is super powerful. And the definition and the openness, like we said in the body graph. And then the last thing I would say, or the third thing, is that you're going to have, if you look at your human design, there are going to be numbers on the top. And the higher they are, the more impact we can say that they have in your life. So especially the 4 top ones, so they're going to be 2 black ones and 2 red ones. Those are archetypes that are going to be themes in your life that you're here to anchor your purpose through. So these 4 archetypes are going to be players that want to sit around the table when it comes to what your life is about. And that's when I created the library, again, 7 years ago, where everything started, where I created like kind of a superhero or a high frequency archetype for each one of those 64 archetypes, so that we can read about them and see, okay, this is an archetype, this is a main player on the stage of my life, of who I am in this world. So especially those 4 ones are really important. And if you're into astrology, there's also the one that I really love, which is the Jupiter on the black side, which is the law. It's like your life is that law. So in my case, the archetype is a daredevil, and the chakra is the 3rd chakra. So I need to be a dynamic daredevil. And if I'm not that, I'm not living my law. And a lot of the things in my life are not going to be able to expand. So I would also say, if you're into astrology and you understand how to find your Jupiter, it's what looks like a 4 on the symbols. That one, take that archetype in, take that chakra in, and know when you are honoring that in your life, expansion, Jupiter is expansion. It allows us to expand. So when we're following the laws of Jupiter and that archetype and that chakra we have there, then so many things can open for us. And sometimes, again, that's connected to the throat chakra. Sometimes we can have things that we are like, but I can't be that, but I can't do that. Very important, whatever that is, do what you need to do to shake off. That's why I always say a lot of what we need to do in life is to use our own body as a catalyst. So breath, movement, sound, touch, so whatever is there that doesn't allow you to be you, that needs to to shake out and to integrate, and whatever it needs to do, because we are here to be, again, to be so alive and to be so unique.
Yeah.
and 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 that's the cool thing. When we show our true colors, we're not for everyone. And I think sometimes in spiritual circles especially, it's like, oh, but everybody needs to like me. The holy grail is how can I serve the whole? No, how can you be so much you so that the people that love that intensity that you are, or that depth that you are, whatever that main thing is, these people are going to come to you, and then you are going to serve together. But it's not, the question is not how can I serve this whole, is how can I show my true colors so my true allies can come and co-create with me in this amazing playground that we're all in.
Yeah, I totally agree. This has been a show full of passion, and I'm so grateful that you brought it. This call is also designed to showcase that living on purpose is possible for everyone, and human design and my heart's purpose is really here just to offer these as tools so that we can all be full of passion. You know, we can all be feeling fully alive and share that with each other, because what a gift, you know, what a gift that is to ourselves and to each other. And I have one closing invitation for everybody. If you visit myheartspurpose.com /special, you can get method one of My Heart's Purpose for free. Method one is all about anchoring your why, which is the core support system for all the choices that you get to make in your life. That's my gift to you. And if you use that link, myheartspurpose.com /special, if you decide to upgrade for the full journey, you'll save $11. And a portion of that this week will go to Bella for joining us and just to support us here today. And in close, if people want to touch base with you or learn more about human design or what you're up to, can you share a little bit about how they can do that?
Yeah, so Facebook, the profile, not the page, Bella Krystal, and then Academy decodingyourdesign.com for the courses, and we have everything from like the small portions of like 101 if you just need to know a little bit about human design, astrology, and gene keys. And that's the thing too, like that's what we haven't spoken about. I think that those three systems are the same because it's one sky, so everything I do is a synthesis between human design, gene keys, and astrology. But if you go to my Facebook profile, then you have a lot of the information there, and then from there you can it's a smorgasbord of whatever resonates with you.
Amazing. Well, I want to thank you so much for being on the show with us today, and I look forward to just following your journey and att vara din svenska kompis.
Ja, låt oss göra det.
we
Tack
we
så mycket.
we have a code language. So thank you again, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody
Bye.
for joining us.
Bye.